Welcome to me, where suspenseful, thrilling, and mysterious stories will draw you into a world where the lines between reality and fantasy seem to blur. When the night falls, when all the sounds gradually quiet down, leaving only your own heartbeat and breathing, that's when these stories begin. Tensions, unsolved mysteries, moments that will make you hold your breath in fear or curiosity, all are waiting for you ahead. Find a comfortable seat, dim the lights, and let this sound guide you on a journey that is not for the faint of heart. I want each of you to leave a comment sharing where you are in the world. And if you are enjoying the episodes, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to the channel now. Relax. Are you ready? If so, join me in the first story right now. The Betrayal. The door to the kitchen flew open and hit the side of the refrigerator with a loud thud. Cold air rushed in. "You rotten bitch. I trusted you." Brock McCarthy stood in the doorway with his shoulders squared and fists clenched. "How could you do that to me?" His nostrils flared as he shook his head. Stunned, Clara Simmons gasped when she heard the commotion. After she regained her composure, she bristled at the hateful accusation. She placed the half-empty dinner plate she was holding in the sink. Staring into his brown eyes, she asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" After 2 years of living together, she knew Brock's temper. But this deranged outburst was worse than usual. You know damn well what I'm talking about. My secret. I told you never to tell anyone about that shit. I didn't say anything to anybody. Her words were unhurried but emphatic. You had to tell somebody something. When I went to the back door after work, all the guys started busting my balls, dropping hints, talking shit like they knew things. All of them acted like they knew something. And you're the only one I talked to about that shit. Brock unzipped his black leather jacket and draped it on the back of a kitchen chair. "Why did you do it? You're nuts. Or you're drunk. I didn't say anything." They glared at each other as a chilling silence gradually filled the room. Hell, I'm not even close to being drunk. I had to leave the bar before I could finish my pitcher. It was impossible to tell what Brock was more agitated about, leaving cold beer or defending himself against the swirling speculations about his hidden, checkered past. Did you bother to ask how your drinking buddies heard about your precious secret? Her voice was soft, as if asking a child if they had finished their homework. "I didn't have to. Damn it. You are the only one who knows." With unhurried steps, Clara walked around the kitchen table, pulling on the back of the chair. The faint scraping of the wooden legs against the linoleum broke the quiet, like fingernails on a chalkboard. She took a seat and cast her gaze towards her angry boyfriend. "That's not exactly true." She paused as their eyes momentarily locked. "Is it?" The tone of her now controlled voice was made bitter by a toxic mix of scorn and controlled rage. "Those women know." After a long pause to emphasize her point, she said, "Trust me, they really know." Like air escaping from a balloon, Brock's body went limp. Without making a sound, he fell into the chair across from her, searching her face for a clue about her intentions. Look, you chose to tell me about your twisted secret. It was your choice. Clara's voice was cold. And I haven't told a soul since. But now I'm wondering what else you might be hiding. Wait, that's not fair. Fair? Fair? You have the balls to mention fair to me? That's laughable. You bust in here and accuse me of betraying you without a shred of evidence. I've always told you everything. Brock reached up and scratched the scruffy hair on his face. I didn't have to tell you about the women and you know what happened? But I did. And now you expect me to carry the same guilt? Clara adjusted her glasses. No, of course not. It's not guilt, exactly. Not really. It's more like, I don't know how to explain it. They sat listening to the faint sound of the small clock on the oven, ticking away the minutes, like the shattered pieces of their failing relationship. Absent-mindedly, Clara used her thumb to wipe the pepper dust off the shaker, sitting in the middle of the table. Do you think one of the women, moved here? He took a long time to answer, as if he hated the power of what truth might do to him. It's possible. He bit the inside of his cheek a few times while he thought. Clara leaned back in her chair. So, what will you do? I mean, if you see one of them? She stifled a yawn as her composure returned. There's another possibility. What if one of those women sent their boyfriend to find you? Like a trapper beating the bushes to get the snakes to show where they're hiding. Brock twisted his face into a scowl after he deciphered her meaning. Crap. He leaned back into his chair. He sat silent for a long moment. I've never even thought about that. It was always a slim possibility, I guess. Well, I think you had better start thinking about that possibility, because I never said a word to anyone, ever. Why would I? Brock pursed his lips and folded his arms in resignation. Holy shit. What are we going to do now? We? Are you seriously thinking this problem is a we thing? I didn't have anything to do with that shit. I wasn't there. I don't even know who they are. This is your ugly history, not mine. Always has been. I thought we were a couple. I thought we were, getting serious. Brock's voice conveyed desperation. Oh yeah, that was before you came in here and blamed me for something I didn't do. I don't think I want to stick around to see what else you might blame me for. No, babe, wait. You can't do that. Really? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Well, I guess you should have thought about that before you shoved open the kitchen door with a heart full of hate. I went from bitch to babe in 5 minutes. And I don't want to see how long it'll take next time. She placed her hands flat on the table. Calmly, She rose and ambled across the kitchen towards the bedroom. Stopping halfway, she turned and said, "I don't want to become another secret in your long history of betrayals. Where I come from, love is all about trust. And you just lost mine. And now you're losing me." She turned and went into the bedroom and slammed the door. Clay Pigeons. It was 3 days since you last called. No, I should clarify, since you answered. Since you answered your damn phone and stopped breaking protocol. And it's not like you didn't know the rules. You needed to check in once every day. Not every 24 hours. Every day. Thursday before midnight, and then Friday, just as the day turned, counted as 2 check-ins. Yet you never stretched it like that. Always called at noon sharp. Another day where you were human and in vicinity of your landline. Mark had been huffing and puffing since day 2. But I assured him this wasn't like you, that something big and horrible and terrible must have happened. Maybe you were laying prone on the floor of your living room, and I was sheltered here, wondering why you weren't calling, while I should have been the one calling for help. By day 3, I was spiraling. You were caught in a trap. You were dismembered and possibly disemboweled. You had lost all sanity and feeling. Mark warned me that 24 hours more and we would need to call in control. I snapped and informed him I was perfectly aware of that, as well as I was perfectly aware of what control would do to you. I pleaded with him to give me your address. It was against every rule in the book, but I was sure he would understand. After all, you had been so diligent with it all. We never had to ask you for anything. You always did your check-ins and checkups by yourself. The phone kept ringing. By day 4, he relented. The first thing I noticed was the curtains. They were green and closed shut. A flyer was on your porch, flapping furiously in the wind. Its pages turned, advertising deals in meat and shampoo. Your house was small, with flaying blue paint and a wrap-around porch. You had plants, and their leaves were dropping in thirst. I knocked on your door twice. You had one of these old-looking knockers, leaving the smell of iron lingering in my fingernails. I don't know what I expected. A hovel, perhaps, or a burrow hole, but everything looked very human to me. Or maybe it was all an act, and you were living in the garden hut. I circled the house, looking for any signs of life, and found none. Wind chimes were swaying softly in the distance, filling the air with a clicking sound. It sounded like a clock counting down. I knew I shouldn't, and under any other circumstances, I wouldn't. But I pressed my nose to your windows, one by one, hoping for any movement or sound from within. I found myself scanning the air for the smell of your dead body. But then I stopped. Maybe I was giving you too much credit. Maybe it was all an act, and you were all the way to the border by now. Mark had given me the security key. All agency-approved houses had one, even though you never knew. It must have been horrible to know that someone could enter your house at any time. Or at least, that was what Mark had said when I asked him, and then chose not to ask anything more. The door creaked, letting in an arc of sunlight. The first thing I noticed was the mirror on the floor, shards spreading in almost a perfect diameter. The second thing I noticed was the pigeon. It flapped furiously around the couch, leaving talon marks on the fabric. The couch matched the curtains, was the first thought I had. The second one was that it was you. Veronica? I asked, and my voice trembled, because this didn't make sense. And then the pigeon talked, and it was you. Amelia! And the pigeon couldn't cry, but I swear I heard its voice break. Amelia, I can't turn back. I closed the door behind me and reached for the light switch. What do you mean you can't turn back? I can't turn back, you echoed, and flew to the mirror. Your image multiplied in each shard until 3, 4. A flock of pigeons were staring back at me. I don't know why. You paused for a second and hoped from one tiny foot to the other. I can't remember how I look like anymore. Veronica, this is nonsense, I said, because I had to stick to protocol. It was our only chance to avoid control, after all. Have you tried your memory exercises? You have been so diligent with them. The pigeon huffed. You think I don't know that? And something about it startled me to my core. There was this animal, barely reaching up to my ankle. Yet, it was you, the 40-something woman to survive the shifting experiments, turning from a mole to a lion in the blink of an eye, and then back to human again. You had survived the monitors and the testing and the labs, only to be stuck as a pigeon. This was ridiculous. I got to my knees because, frankly, it was embarrassing to have to look down to see you. Veronica, control will be here in less than 6 hours. We need to prove them you are lucid. And most of all, human. Maybe it was because you were less than a foot tall, but your voice was very small all of a sudden. I am perfectly lucid, Amelia. As for human, there was a sound that might have been a laugh. I simply don't know how to be that anymore. Don't say that, I gasped. At least don't say that out loud. There was a long silence. And then, can I trust you? I almost laughed. You could turn into a bear if you wanted. Tear me in half. I broke into your house. I have been monitoring you every single day for the past 5 years. I was trying to beat control in its own game. The wind chime kept ringing. I can help you if you want. I all but ignored your question. I had been Nothing but a surveillance camera to you for half a decade. But you have to promise me that you will turn back. Help me how? I can call the agency for you. You can do the speaking. I paused for a second. This is the reason you haven't called, right? Because you don't have, limbs? You can't pick up the phone? I sounded irrational, even to my own ears. Of course, the pigeon couldn't pick up the damn landline. It had no hands. You would do that? I would. But only if you promised to turn back by nightfall. Your voice cracked. I don't know if I can promise that. I don't know how to do that. I don't remember my own face. Nonsense, I called again. I will help you remember your face just fine. And I picked up the landline. Mark was confused, but relieved. Remarked how I had worried for nothing. And maybe I hadn't reached you yet. But as soon as you show me, you had to tell me to turn back and stop being such a fool. That everything was okay. And you were fine. And everything was fine. And nothing would go wrong ever again. He sounded like a preacher, promising heaven to killers. In short, a whole load of bullshit. When he finally hung up, you flew up to the curtain rod. Why would you do that? You asked. And it was a brilliant question, because I hadn't the slightest idea myself. You know what control would do to you otherwise? My voice was small. I had to look up to you now. You huffed. The collar. I know. Everyone knew. It was a terrible, horrible thing, blocking any shifting until deemed appropriate again. Stuck as a human forever. Surely not such a terrible fate, as I had been stuck as a human from the moment I was born, and would likely remain one forever. Yet, why be a human forever, when you could be a different beast every hour? Yet, why be human at all? A small voice always echoed in the back of my mind. But once again, I pushed it down. Envy was one thing. Self-hatred was another. Now, let's find your face. I clapped my hands, sounding like a school teacher. This encounter had to take a pleasant turn somehow, even if I had to grab it by the reins to do so. I had never seen your face myself. To me, you were just Veronica, a first name on a paper, and occasionally a voice in my ear. You were also a string of numbers and letters, a barcode detailing you as one of the few survivors. But you didn't need to know that. Do you have any family photos? Phone backgrounds? My voice trailed in the quiet of the house. He hit me. It all went still. Excuse me? He hit me. Your voice is steadier now. He hit me, and I needed a way out. I figured I could fly, but then he shot me, and this is when I notice that every feather on the floor is laced with your blood. And the smell I had been ignoring is there. It is tangy and metallic. You laugh. It is a desperate sound, coming out more like a croak. I had never heard an animal make a sound like that. Yet here you are. I guess you could say I asked for it, turned myself into a clay pigeon, a perfect target for him to shoot at. Nonsense, I snap. Don't talk like that about yourself. You keep talking, as if I had never interrupted. It was as if a slate had been wiped clean. I had been diligent with everything. I had been walking around the minefield, tiptoeing mostly, with the agency, with the calls, with him. He wouldn't let me shift. Said it was unnatural, that it was better if I embraced my true self, which, of course, was me being human. A croak escapes your beak again. I hadn't shifted in 5 years. This is my first time flying since I met you. And do you know what is the funny thing? I had been human for so long, yet I don't remember my own face. I was just his extension, I think. Your feathers are puffed, and you reach down, nibbling on a feather on your chest. And the worst thing is, I am afraid. I am afraid to try to shift back again, because then what happens with the gunshot? You are speaking as if I am not there, as if you are addressing an audience of thousands, giving a pragmatic lecture on anatomy. Your voice is devoid of feeling, and I have an overbearing need to reach out to you. What if it pokes open a hole on my chest? What if it cuts off an artery in my leg, and then I need to amputate it? My voice is gentle for once. Let me see. I didn't think you would. Yet you fly down and land on my arm. I draw in a sharp breath. I had always dreamed of a bird landing on me like that, ever since watching it in old animated movies. Your feathers are stained red, and when I reach for your right foot, you tremble. It's okay, I whisper. And because you are a pigeon, I reach and stroke the feathers on the top of your head. It's okay, I repeat, mostly to myself, because while I have studied animal medicine, I am surely not a human doctor. You might be lucky. It looks like nothing but a scary flesh wound. But you are right. I have no idea what this means for your human body. What is your favorite color? I ask, and you angle your head to the side. Orange, I guess, although I never gave it much thought. You are light as a feather. Why orange? I love the sunrise. All is dark. And then there is orange. And then there is a new day. That's a lovely answer, I say, because I need to tether you back to yourself. What do you remember of your mother's eyes? And then I curse myself because you grew up in the academy. What would you know of your mother's eyes? Yet, despite everything, you answer. They were brown, I think. I talk you through your memories and your dreams. We recall your training and exercises, your memory drills and protocol compliances, who you were before, And who will you be after? Animal and human anatomy, femurs and phalanxes, muscles and arteries, and how your brain expands, and how your heart beats. We spend all night talking. How you are a human, but you don't have to be one. How you want to be one. How it is worth taking the risk. And then there is a flash, and you are on the floor, dried blood on your side. The shadow of the past. In the depths of the hospital's darkest ward, I sat beside my grandfather's bed. The only sound, the faint hum of the life support machines. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, and the flickering fluorescent lights above cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Kiddo," he whispered, his voice like a rusty gate creaking in the wind. "I got something to tell you." I leaned in close, my heart racing with anticipation. "What is it, Grandpa?" He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with the effort. "I was involved in a ritual many years ago. A young woman was sacrificed, and I helped cover it up." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My grandfather, the man I'd always admired and respected, was capable of such a horrific act? "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, trying to process my emotions. Grandpa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, kiddo. I'm so sorry. I've carried this guilt with me for so long, and I don't want to take it to my grave." I looked at my grandfather, seeing him in a new light. I felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, sadness, and compassion. "Grandpa," I said, my voice soft, "I forgive you, but I need to ask you something." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want me to reveal the truth, or keep your secret safe?" Grandpa's face contorted in a mixture of pain and relief. "Please, kiddo, keep my secret safe. I don't want to hurt anyone else with my mistakes." I nodded, feeling a weight settle upon my shoulders. "I'll keep your secret, Grandpa. But promise me one thing." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me you'll find peace. Finally. You've carried this burden for so long. It's time to let it go." Grandpa's eyes filled with tears again, and he nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I promise, kiddo. I'll find peace. Finally." As I sat there, holding my grandfather's hand, I knew that I would keep his secret safe, but I also knew that I would carry the weight of that secret with me forever. The darkness closed in around us, and I could feel the presence of the unknown, lurking just beyond the edge of perception. I knew that I had to make a choice: to reveal the truth, or to keep the secret hidden. And as I looked into my grandfather's eyes, I knew that I would choose the latter. For in the world of shadows and secrets, sometimes the truth is better left unspoken. The machines surrounding us beeped and whirred, a constant reminder of my grandfather's mortality. I looked at him, seeing the pain and guilt etched on his face. "Grandpa," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I'll keep your secret safe, but promise me one thing." "What's that, kiddo?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Promise me you'll find peace. Finally. You've carried this burden for so long. It's time to let it go." Grandpa's eyes filled with tears again, and he nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I promise, kiddo. I'll find peace. Finally." As the darkness closed in around us, I knew that I would keep his secret safe. But I also knew that I would carry the weight of that secret with me forever. And as I looked into my grandfather's eyes, I saw something that chilled me to the bone, a glimmer of evil, a spark of malevolence that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. I knew then that I had made a terrible mistake. I had promised to keep my grandfather's secret safe, but I had no idea what horrors that secret might unleash. As the machines surrounding us beeped and whirred, I knew that I was trapped in a living nightmare, with no escape in sight. Here is a prequel to the story. Origins, New Orleans, 1955. Etienne Lafleur, a young and ambitious occultist, stood in the dimly lit chamber, surrounded by the members of the mysterious Order of the Red Hand. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something else, something darker. "Brothers and sisters," Etienne began, his voice dripping with conviction, "we stand at the threshold of a new era, an era of power, of knowledge, of transcendence." The members of the Order nodded in agreement, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. "But to achieve this goal," Etienne continued, "we must be willing to make sacrifices, to push the boundaries of what is acceptable, of what is human." The members of the Order murmured among themselves, their voices filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Etienne raised his hands, and the room fell silent. "I propose that we perform the ritual of the Red Hand," he said, his voice dripping with anticipation. "A ritual that will grant us the power to transcend the limitations of the human form." The members of the Order nodded in agreement, and Etienne began to outline the details of the ritual. As the night wore on, the members of the Order prepared for the ritual, their movements filled with a sense of urgency and anticipation. And Etienne, the young and ambitious occultist, stood at the center of it all, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. The ritual began, and the members of the order chanted and swayed, their voices and movements building to a crescendo of power and energy. And at the center of it all, Etienne stood, his eyes fixed on the young woman who was to be the sacrifice. The ritual reached its climax, and the young woman screamed as Etienne plunged the dagger into her heart. The members of the order cheered and chanted, their voices filled with a sense of triumph and power. And Etienne, the young and ambitious occultist, stood at the center of it all, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly intensity. But as the ritual came to a close, Etienne felt a sense of unease, a sense of guilt and regret. He looked down at the young woman's lifeless body, and he knew that he had made a terrible mistake. The ritual may have granted him power, but it had also cursed him with a guilt that would haunt him for the rest of his life. And as Etienne walked away from the ritual chamber, he knew that he would never be able to escape the shadow of the past. Seeking fair lady, no matter how much she fussed with her blonde locks, Lady Charity Farnsworth cast a blue, deviled countenance before her boudoir mirror, so could not achieve a desirable outcome. She finally relinquished the brush, tossing it to the makeup-strewn vanity as she thought to herself, "Whatever am I to do? My father has forbidden me to ever entertain my beau, Sir Riley, in any genteel ton company henceforth. He doesn't understand the depths of our love for one another. What is the point of attending yet another tea or ball in pretense of making a match, when in my heart of hearts the perfect match already exists? There is none other I would ever want to be yoked to. Why can't Father forgive our innocent indiscretions in the garden and offer Sir Fenwick another opportunity to win his graces? So what if he saw us kissing? Giving up, she flung her arms out wide, then buried her face in her hands as she sobbed. Presently, a cautious knock sounded at the door. "Oh, Charity, dear," came the voice of her father. "Let me in to see how you look. You'll be meeting some exciting, eligible bachelors tonight. You must be ready. It is time to be going." "Oh, one moment, please. Be right there." She slipped a silky robe over her shift and opened the door. "Charity, where is your maid? You are not near ready to go, and your face is a disgrace. Whatever is wrong with you?" She couldn't help herself. She encircled his neck with her forearms and cried on the shoulder of his wool spencer, smearing it with rouge. "Please, Father, I have no desire to meet any other man. I only yearn for my true love." "Do you mean that insufferable rogue, Fenwick? He treated you like an adventuress. No respect for you or myself. I will not be bamboozled by the likes of him. You deserve a man of honor, the kind that will be at the gala tonight. Now get into your gown. As long as you are under my roof, you'll abide by my rules. I'll pick out a suitable mate for you, one that will be an advantageous coupling. End of discussion. He disentangled himself from her and slammed the door shut on his way out. 1 second later, the door opened again as he stuck his head in. Don't bother getting dressed now. We would be late. I'll simply bring home some lucky fellow with me. You'll meet him when I get back, and we will have a ceremony this weekend to make you his wife. That'll put an end to your nonsense. Once he left, Charity wailed louder than ever. No, no, no. He can't do this to me. She collapsed on the bed in tears. Meanwhile, out in the garden, Sir Riley crouched behind a leafy rhododendron, watching for the carriage to leave. It surprised him to see Lord Farnsworth was alone. That meant chances were good that Charity would be alone inside as well. He had ridden along with his partner, Sir Carlton Winslow, when he came to escort Dowager Countess Diana Honeyfield, Charity's aunt, out to dinner. His hope had been to follow Charity and her father to whatever event they had planned for the evening and try to win an audience with the Lord to apologize for his behavior at their last meeting. This turn of events was even better. Dare he approach his fair maiden to pick up where they left off? He had gained great strides in having his way with the lass before her father had discovered their secret rendezvous in the dark garden and forbade them to see each other ever again. It was a risky plan, but with aplomb, perhaps fortune would smile on them, and her father could never deny them, given the right circumstance. His heart was pounding. If he could just get inside and convince the fair maiden to let him come inside also. His hands sweated as he hoisted himself up the giant oak that spread branches out toward what he was sure was her dressing room window. Twigs snapped and leaves rustled. Hopefully, no servants were close enough to hear his clumsy ascent. When in position, he could peer through the gauzy curtains and see her sprawled on the bed, wearing little other than a flimsy robe. His excitement heightened. He threw twigs to ping on the glass and cautiously called out her name. What? What was that noise? I miss Riley so much. It is as if I can hear him calling to me. She stretched up from the mattress, allowing the robe to fall away, exposing more tender flesh. Then she realized where the noise was coming from and ran to the window. She couldn't get it opened fast enough when she saw her love clinging to the branches. Soon he was within her grasp, and they clung to each other. Mouths searched and found one another. Fingers fumbled at clothing till it fell away. Palms grabbed and caressed and repeated and explored uncharted territory. He picked up her trembling body and carried it to the bed, gently placing it as he wordlessly asked permission to envelope her. She willingly granted access and likewise enveloped all of him. They brought each other to tottering heights, crashing deliciously down, and climbed again and again, becoming one with each other. Let no man put asunder, losing all sense of time and space. They belonged to each other. They were in total bliss until Charity, it is your father. I have someone you need to meet. He will soon be your husband. I am giving him your hand in marriage. Come out at once. Charity wilted in Riley's arms. You mustn't be caught in here. He'll kill you. Then he'll kill me. Slowly. I know the kind of man he would choose for me. Nothing like you. Climb out, please, she whispered. I'll not give you to another man. I'll face those barking irons if I must. But you belong fully to me now. We've been caught red-handed, but we've done nothing wrong. No apologies anymore. I'll make you an honest woman. We'll visit the Amen curler tomorrow. We love each other. Your father has to see that now. No swell will have you after tonight. I'm not sorry. He kissed her quickly and slid out the window just as her father opened the door on her nakedness beneath the sheets. 1600, November 28, 2024. Subterfuge. Suitors precariously climbing trees and pressing their suit. Ripped bodices. Hot kisses. Near discovery. I nearly swooned. What more could possibly befall our hero and heroine? Be still, my heart, and wait impatiently for the next installment of All's Fair. 1640, Nov 28, 2024. So glad you approve. Thought about changing ending to where she climbs out with him and they disappear too? Haven't entered it, so think it is okay to change. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Trudy Jass. 1656. Novo 28. 2024. Happy Thanksgiving to you. You could have her slip out before she meets what's his name, or in the day or two before the wedding. Auntie could have a little tea party for her, and off the Jersey or Gretna Green they go. Reply. Report. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Mary Bendixson. 2055. Nov 28, 2024. Right on. Reply. Edit. Delete. 36. Nov 28, 2024. Your story has a lot going for it. It's dramatic, emotional, and packed with tension, all of which make for an engaging Regency romance. Charity's despair and her father's overbearing nature are written in a way that makes the stakes feel real. It's clear how much is on the line for her, and that emotional pull keeps the reader invested. I love how you've woven in Regency-era details like Spencer, Ton, and almond curler. Those touches make the world feel authentic as without being overwhelming. Charity and Riley's relationship feels passio. Reply. Report. 1644. Novi 28, 2024. So appreciative of your comments. Was considering changing the ending to her climbing out with him to the unknown. What do you think? Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Rebecca Lewis, 1808, Nov 29, 2024. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. I think having Charity climb out with Riley could be a powerful ending. It adds an extra layer of defiance and agency to her character. It would show she's willing to take control of her own fate instead of being trapped by her father's demands. Plus, it leaves the story on a romantic and adventurous note, with the two of them facing an uncertain future together. That kind of ending would feel satisfying and true to the passion you've established between them. If you decide to go that route, you might want reply. Report. Thanks again. I wrote another too cute episode last night that sort of fits one of this week's prompts. After reading the new prompts, I think I will pull the fair story and match it with a new prompt. Even though it has several likes, which I will lose, I didn't enter it into contest, so it should be okay to do. Have more family events today, but hope to get this done. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Leslie Mamala, 1105. Nov 28, 2024. Well done. I am ready to hear what happens next. Reply. Report. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Mary Bendixson, 1653. Nov 28, 2024. Glad you liked it. And thanks for the follow. Have you read the previous episodes, all with fair in them, that lead up to this fiasco? We'll get back to your work after today. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Edit. Delete. 2020. Nov 28, 2024. Not yet, but I will. Happy Thanksgiving. Reply. Report. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Thomas. Wetzel, so 749. Nov 28, 2024. Your writing is so sophisticated, I can barely understand half of it. I just know it's awesome. You are so good. I'm gonna go watch every episode of Downton Abbey, and then come back to reread this and see if I can actually appreciate it like an intelligent adult. Happy Turkey Day. Reply. Report. 1649. Novi 28, 2024. Gobble, gobble to you too. I don't know about sophisticated. I am only winging it on this Ton stream, but glad you like it. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Lady Coretta. Stevenberg. 0502. Nov 28, 2024. Always a good read. Reply. Report. Joe 533. Nov 28, 2024. Thank you. Reply. Edit. Delete. Upvote. Downvote. 1 point. Alexis Araneta, 1748. Nov 27, 2024. An adorable continuation of your series. Lovely work. Reply. Report 1931. Novi 27, 2024. Thank you. Do you think of this as the finale, or does it go on? Reply. Edit. Delete. Ambition. Arms up, the man said. A smile touched my lips, and I did as I was told. I knew that I'd fucked up. There was no denying it. This meeting was a formality, not a death sentence. I lifted my arms lightly above my head. My suit coat hung along my shoulders like torn-back sails. The man patted me down, unholstered my gun, and tucked it along the back of his waistband, and I looked at him with a questioning glance. The nerve of this one, I thought, but remained silent, smelling the wafting cigar smoke pouring out of Father's office. You'll get it back when business is concluded. This your only piece? He asked, sizing me up. I nodded and tucked in my shirt along the waist again, shimmied my pants into a better position. The man stood aside, gesturing for me to enter. My hand wrapped around the brass doorknob, and the thick wood creaked inward, and all at once the smell of Father's cigars hit me harder than a ton of bricks. My eyes watered. Making my way inside through the haze reminded me of the night we went down to the docks to pitch the body of Lenny Chesnetter over into the dark water. Not me, Lenny's voice echoed in my mind. I didn't do nothin'. I swear it. Nothin', I tell ya. The gunshot always sounds louder when it isn't you pulling the trigger. I entered the lavish office, my father sitting behind his desk like an old king at his throne. And to the chair along the right of the desk, my brother, turning his head to look at me. Even for all the years since the day of his automobile accident, I can never get used to the sight of that scar. A jagged line running along the left temple toward the middle of the cheek. Have a seat, Father said. I listened to my shoes clacking across the hardwood, listening to the sounds of the door shutting behind me, but didn't have to look back to know that the man outside had done it. Other scents were mingling in the air, Father's cologne, as well as my brother's. One of the housekeepers had set up a bouquet in this dark room, as if it had seemed to mask the constantly wafting cigar smoke drifting up toward the ceiling. It didn't. I found the open chair to my father's right diagonal from his spot behind the desk, and took the wide way around, pulling the chair back so that the three of us now sat almost in a perfect triangle. I did this because whatever bad water had been spilled between my brother and me, I wasn't in a fighting mood. Maybe it was the Irish in me, some instinctual thing to wanna fuck strange women and fight all the goddamn time. My brother scoffed at this, gusting his air, and flapped his coat back to the center of his torso, over the velvet blue vest beneath. A single gold chain clipped to one of the buttonholes. The same pocket watch I gave him for Christmas 2 winters ago. I sat with ease and crossed my right leg over the other. "Let's get down to it, boys," Father said. "Which one of you did it?" There was silence for a moment. My brother and I exchanged a glance, not saying a word. "All right, if that's how you want to do it," he said, pulling back one of the desk drawers and withdrawing a Colt 1911 .45 semi-automatic pistol. He thumbed back the hammer and pointed at me. "Which one of you sons of bitches killed Jimmy Booker?" "Oh, you think I fucking did it, do ya?" I asked with a sneer. "Go on then, shoot me. Get it over with," I said, resting my hands along the armrests. In truth, I didn't give a shit one way or the other. I looked over at my brother, trying to read his expression, but he sat there with a calm that I'd only ever seen a few times before. For once, I was the loose cannon here. For once, I was the one losing my mouth, when what I needed to do was shut the fuck up. "Why don't you point the gun there?" I said, pointing at my brother. "He's always the one stirring up problems in this family. Put one right between his fucking eyes and let's get this thing over with." The sound of the gunshot was deafening. I flinched at the recoil and, to my amazement, realized that I'd still been alive. My eyes widened as a smile crept onto my face. I looked at Father. The gun had been pointed upward, and the muzzle drifted a thin line of smoke from the barrel up to the ceiling, where it mixed with the wafting cigar smoke. "Are you fucking crazy?" I asked, sitting forward. My foot dropped to the hardwood floor with a thud. "You know how many coppers walk these streets?" I asked, squinting at him. "I own the cops," Father said with a smile, and set the gun down atop the desk there, where it sat pointing between both of us, and not at one of us in particular. Father picked up his cigar and gently rounded the ash from the lit end, brought it to his lips where he bit down lightly, perching it along the corner of his teeth. "I'm gonna ask you both again. Which one of you did it?" he asked, drawing on the chewed bit of his cigar, with a wash of gray smoke drifting down from his parted lips. His wrinkled eyes studied us one by one. "Does it matter?" my brother chimed in. "That guy was a crook. Bookie or not, he's been stealing from us for years." "Not us," he said. "From me. And I know that he's been doing it. But what both of you don't know is that Jimmy Booker has been fixing bets for the better part of the last 2 decades. It was only a matter of time before we took the hammers to his kneecaps, but I would have let him live. You smug prick." Father leaned forward and stared at brother. "Scraps," That's what he took from me. Scraps, like a dog, and one of you two numbskulls whacked him before I could set him down and get the truth out of him good and proper. Father sat back. Besides, nobody gets snuffed out in this town without my saying so. Not even my dumb fuck, petulant rat children, prancing around like they're doing the Lord's work. Is that what you thought you were doing? The Lord's work? He slammed his fist down along the top of the wooden desk, killing a man in broad daylight. 2 days before the race of the fucking century. He stood quickly, the chair behind him falling back as he towered over the desk in front of us. Do you two idiots have any idea how much fucking money I was going to make off of that race? 55 large, I said. I knew I'd seen the books. How much money did you take him for, anyway? Father asked, pressing his knuckles down along the top of the desk. How much money did you recover from Jimmy's safe? All of it, I said. How much? He asked again. His pupils were so large that you couldn't see the blues there anymore. Only the blackened coals for eyes where color had once been. We're wasting time, my brother said absently. He had begun running his fingers along the scar across the left temple beside his eye. He did this, of course, an old gambling tell of his, when he bluffed. We had another bookie lined up, south side, Giovanni's man. My father was stunned into silence. He turned and picked up his expensive leather chair and set it upright once more, collapsing into it. Let me get this straight. You killed my man so that you could use the Italians. Do you think because we have some truce with those Goombas, you can take out one of our own and fix bets with another organization? Looks like you boys are trying to run this family. Father rubbed his eyes, his cigar still perched in his teeth along the corner of his mouth. He breathed in deep, the cigar cherry lighting up the inside of his palm, and he pulled it from his lips, curling an index finger around it, wet and gnarled. His hand perched along the armrest, a thick line of smoke wafting from the end of the half-chewed cigar. You boys will be the death of me, he said with his eyes closed. He turned to look first at my brother and then at me. What gave you smartasses the bright idea to fix bets with the Italians? My brother glanced at me and then back to Father. Because it's our time to move on their territory. The Italians are weak. They lost 3 good men to bank robberies, another 2 to the bombing last month. My father's eyes glinted. Between the 3 of us, none of us saying the thing there beneath the surface. That father had been orchestrating the bombings. There had been dozens in the months past. He'd been killing off the Italians from whatever shadows that he'd been operating in, beneath the guise of a truce all this time. The bombs that had been planted the coppers tipped off about the bank robberies was only a fraction of the work that had been done. Explosives were planted in engine rooms, aboard steamers, docked in Boston Harbor, prized fighters dying suddenly from arsenic. There was a level of depravity not spoken of within this room, and between the three of us, nobody had said a word. "Why, Jimmy?" Father asked. "Why in all of this did you take out my very own fucking bookie?" I sat forward, an elbow cocked behind me along the armrest. "Because Jimmy wasn't who you thought he was." I stared across the desk. My brother shifted beside me. "Jimmy wasn't just fixing bets for you. He was fixing them for the Italians at the same time. He might have been taking crumbs from you over the years, but he's been raking it in hand over fist with the Italians for a decade or more. Jimmy is a distant cousin to the Giovanni Syndicate, married to one of our very own." "How do you know all this?" Father asked, raising an eyebrow. "You're not the only one who bribes cops," Brother said. There was laughter then. Father sat back against the leather chair and stared for a time at the ceiling, running his thick fingers through his thinning red hair. "Word on the street is Jimmy's been letting bits and pieces of information slip past our lines for years. How do you think the Italians were able to take the South Side so quickly?" Father, puzzled by this, shook his head and sat up once more. He centered himself behind the desk and laced his fingers. He seemed to know without knowing. "What do you suppose we do about all of this?" he asked, looking at me. I looked at my brother, who finally smiled. "We know the name of their horse," Brother said. "Consider it a parting gift from Jimmy." The next day had been one of the fairer ones of the season, almost pleasant. The sun was shining brilliantly overhead. I squinted through my tinted glasses, my cap tucked low over the eyes. I stood in the open air, smelling the vibrant scents of the women in attendance all around, their floral dresses puffed beneath the small of their waists like delicate flowers, concealing something even sweeter there beneath. My eyes moved across the sea of faces there, the onlookers waiting for the next race to begin, and with the gunshot that rang out, a few around were startled. But the next round of horses were padding down the track. Our horse wasn't among them, but was the next to follow. So I had little interest in this race, except for the equestrian appeal of horses galloping along their curved track, with each of their jockeys whipping their hindquarters in feverish gait. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. The leader among them, a tan beauty with a red-jacketed jockey standing above and hunched over the bobbing head of the horse that he rode. They crossed the finish line, the crowd erupting into feverish applause. "Ours is next," my brother said beside me. All was taken care of. I needn't bother with going over the morning's events, as I'd known well into the mid-afternoon what had transpired. Giovanni now lay along a cold slab downtown, the mortician sifting through the gunshot wounds that had been inflicted by the Tommy guns that took out their entire entourage as they approached their prize-winning horse, named Winn-Dixie. Our man inside had seen to poisoning Winn-Dixie with enough tranquilizers to kill a horse, to pun, but we'd be there to watch it as it happened. The horses had left the track, their riders collecting their wreaths of flowers before padding along the high walls to adoring and cheering fans. "You're certain it's been taken care of?" I asked, looking at him, my eyes trailing over the scar along the side of his face. "It's done," he said, without looking at me, feeling my eyes running along the course of that jagged line. I focused forward once more. "Father will be pleased," I said. There wasn't anything else to say. This was the first in many events moving forward. The decision that we were consciously making in a coup to take out our flesh and blood and run the organization the way that we saw fit. The world was moving right along beyond the cozy place that Father had built and remained. This was the world of the steam invention, industrialization, changing political landscapes, and even grander concepts that eluded Father. It seemed that in just an evening's pass, the world had left him there, a fossil amongst the living, and that no world would welcome his old ideals and aging perspective. I glanced at my brother now, not knowing how long he'd been staring at me. Both of us knew. "When this is all over, you'll take the north, and I'll take the south side," he said. I focused my attention on the track before us and nodded. I would take over my father's estate, and my brother would take control of the Italians. Boston was ours for the taking. There was a long pause between us, waiting for the next race to begin. A stir of excitement amongst the onlookers. And then the gunshot came. The gates opened. Our horse, Lil Red 1, roared past the others, but at the third gate, Winn-Dixie trotted forward in hopefulness, keeping a fair speed at first before arching its head backward and falling onto the ground with its back legs splayed as it rolled to its side, knocking its rider from its back. Everyone jumped to their feet and stood watching the downed rider, Winn-Dixie, writhing in pain, kicking its legs beneath it as it lay upon its side, bobbed its head as it scraped gently along the ground there. Everyone around murmuring with feverish anxiety. Winn-Dixie, panting, kicked its feet a few more times, stopped, heaved, and let out the last of its breath. Lil Red 1 crossed the finish line in first place, without the other riders knowing what had happened. I glanced at my brother. The crook of a small smile touched his lips. I looked back to Winn-Dixie, forgetting all about our own prized horse winning the race, and stared with wide eyes in horror at the fallen stud with his rider knelt beside it, one small hand rested along the rib cage of the dead animal. "That settles it," Brother said. He turned to look at me, and I to him, finally, forcing my eyes from Winn-Dixie. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said, extending a hand. I shook it, feeling the embrace of my brother there amongst a crowded bandstand of race enthusiasts. For a moment, I felt the warmth of his hand, a subtle reminder of the man that he was, a handshake with someone that I loved, and then felt the cold and calculated business transaction that had just concluded. "Till we see each other again," I said. We parted there. He took his leave and mingled with the crowd beyond, making his way down the steps, rounded the corner, and was gone. That was the last time that I'd spoken to my brother aloud. Not long after the events of that day, my father had been fatally stabbed to death late one evening. Of course, this was part of the plan all along, though I had never been the one holding the knife. It was my brother, releasing us unto the splinters of this syndicate. It wasn't long before the fire started, as his men had been ordered to take out the Italians in force. The gunshots, for a time, had been frequent and unrelenting, often in broad daylight, but skirmishes clamored through the nights in those early days. Only rumors of these prominent Italian family members slain in cold blood, or that of the houses that had been burned in the early morning hours while they slept, cozied in their beds. My brother is always the benefactor, or presumed to have been. As I sat in Father's study, swirling a brandy, I'd not had the slightest care. My brother, unbeknownst to him, had been working for me all along, doing the dirty work with blood-stained hands, as the plans that I'd set into motion had finally come to pass. "Cheers," I said, raising a toast. "The Psychiatrist." I closed my eyes, ignoring the loud courtroom around me. Smacking of a woman in the back's gum chewing, fast typing of computer, closing and opening of doors in the back of the already full room. Clicking of photos being taken, yelling of lawyers arguing, banging of Judge Lewis's gavel hitting the hollow wooden desk. How did I get there? How did one misstep cause me to be the one standing there awaiting death or life imprisonment? No matter what I chose, it was the end for me. So couldn't I have given up instead of going down screaming? No, I couldn't have, because that wasn't me. I heard the judge's raspy voice echo across the small courtroom. "Silence," he hollered. The whole room followed his instructions and went dead silent. "Miss Davis, I will ask once more," the judge sighed in a strained but steady voice. "How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?" His voice faded slowly, like he was on edge. I paused, still holding my eyes securely shut. His strained, groggy voice gave me the feeling he was tired, angry, annoyed, and possibly sad. The way his jaw moved very gently and seemed clenched, even when he spoke, was a curious realization. Though when he did speak, normally, his voice was slow and dull, which was pretty normal for someone his age. But still, I knew something was wrong. He had a small wedding band on his right hand that was slightly rusted around the edges, married for 30 years at least. He had bruises covered by a tattoo on the back of his same hand, which I noticed immediately after. It was new, practically 3 days old. Gone, but never forgotten. It read next to a small signature. I thought back more to the tattoo. JLJ, the signature read. Was it short for John Lewis Jr., the judge's son? The judge was grieving, not tired. He seemed so gloomy. I leaned my back against my chair, only to feel a soft vibration. So I listened. A uniformed officer behind me was tapping her foot on the floor quickly. Not normally, though. It was like she had somewhere to be. Nevertheless, it wasn't enough information to know for sure. Officer Howard had walked me in there, so I must have seen more. I remembered the way she walked, with a small limp on her left side. And when I asked her what courtroom we were going to, she responded angrily, like she was frustrated with a simple question. During the entire opening remarks, I kept hearing her heartbeat in the silence, and it was beating fast. But why was that? Was she nervous? Perhaps anxiety? No, that wouldn't explain the limp. That's it, I thought. Pain meds. She was taking them for her knee, but they were causing an addiction. She needed to see a doctor to get more, and that is why she was checking her watch so often. I took a deep breath to try and refocus on the judge's question, but I couldn't. I took a big whiff of my lawyer, Maxwell Hartley's cologne. It was strong, to say it best, but why was that? Other days, he'd come in with no smell, so why was today different? I pictured his frame leaning against the door in the hallway during our recess. He was a tall guy, 6'4", and his energy followed that. Every day, he came into work with a kind smile and a good morning for everyone. But he hadn't in a few weeks. He wasn't bad looking either, with his short, dark brown hair and even darker brown eyes. But alas, he wore a wedding ring when we first met. That was until a month ago when I noticed it off, and he never mentioned anything. I remembered back to the morning when he left abruptly at 10 o'clock on the dot and returned at exactly 10:15. Later, at around 1 o'clock, he did the same and came back at 1:15 again. Coincidence? No, nothing in our world is. So, what could he be doing that took 15 minutes? Immediately, a conversation I had with my therapist friend came up, where she mentioned 15 minutes on the phone talking about common interests is an exercise for troubled couples. This means that Hartley was having marital problems. The judge coughed, and I jumped. I regained focus and slowly opened my sore eyes to adjust to the light. Shouldn't have I just ended this? Stopped at all the suffering I caused everyone, and just admitted to it. They all have places to be. So why couldn't I just say, yeah, I did it? 4 stupidly simple words I couldn't get out of my mouth. Why didn't I think I did anything? I did. I killed so many people. I can admit it now. But what was wrong with me then? I'm a psychiatrist. I should be able to tell what is wrong with people with the slightest movement. But in this case, I can't, and I don't know why. The entire trial, I had no feeling in me. It's like I was turning into someone else. I felt no remorse for killing 17 people. And yeah, sure it was out of my hands. But I still was caught red-handed prescribing medication people never even needed just to make a profit. I just don't understand it all. I have studied the brains, body languages, and emotions of thousands of people for most of my life. Yet somehow, I can't find out why or what happened to me. I was a good person before all of this. I had friends, an amazing career, a life, and a family. So how could one bad decision make me want to drive that all away? The answer, you may be wondering, I will never be able to give. I shot out of my chair fiercely. Not guilty, Your Honor. The whole courtroom gasped out loud. I plead not guilty. Confessions of the Wicked. Trigger warning. This story contains mentions of suicide, murder, SA, and drug abuse to whomever it may concern in the future. I must confess, Lisa clutched the letter tightly in her trembling hands, her heart racing as she tried to process the words before her. Each sentence felt like a distant echo, her mind struggling to comprehend the reality they presented. The ink on the paper blurred into a haze as she stared at it as if it were a passage from a dramatic novel rather than a message meant for her. One shaky hand dropped to the desk, the wooden surface cool against her palm, while the other instinctively covered her mouth in a futile attempt to stifle a gasp. A powerful wave of dread surged through her, leaving her muscles taut and aching with anxiety. Feeling an urgent need to escape the suffocating atmosphere, she pivoted on her toes, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps, and made a fast beeline for the door, desperate to put distance between herself and the shocking revelation contained in that letter. Her mind raced wildly, grappling with the cruel reality of working in the very prison where her brother had been a devoted inmate for the last 10 years. The stark, cold walls echoed with memories of their shared laughter, now replaced by a haunting sense of despair. Every day, she poured herself into her work, driven to the brink of insanity as she navigated the complex legal system, desperately seeking a way to free him. Yet, in the quiet moments, a dark shadow loomed over her thoughts, the chilling possibility that all her efforts might still fall short in saving him from the fate the letter she held had predicted. She remembered the moment she first heard about her brother's arrest in South Korea. A wave of despair crashing over her. Confusion and heartbreak gripped her as she tried to fathom why he had been taken from her. In those early days, she had poured herself into studying the laws of both Korea and the United States, desperate to understand the gravity of the 24 murder charges and 2 counts of attempted murder he faced. Late nights spent poring over legal texts had become her refuge, each page turning fueled by an unwavering determination to bring him back and piece together the chaos that had upended their lives. The murders occurred in the United States, which ultimately led Lisa's family to seek refuge in South Korea. They were fleeing the shadows cast by a chilling truth. Richard was a serial killer. Disturbingly, Lisa's parents were aware of Richard's dark nature long before the FBI uncovered his gruesome activities. He had confided in them, revealing his violent tendencies and chilling declaration that he would continue his spree regardless of the consequences, even if apprehended. Richard's descent into darkness began at a young age. When he was just 17, he was discovered covered in blood at a crime scene, a scene that would mark his 3rd murder. This incident forced him to come clean about his heinous actions. Under pressure from law enforcement, Richard detailed each horrifying crime he committed, recounting events with a disturbing calmness, as if sharing mundane stories instead of the tragedies he inflicted. For Lisa's family, the awareness of his twisted mind and the violent past they were escaping only deepened the turmoil they felt in their new home. Their parents seriously thought about turning him in to the police, but then they saw Lisa. How could they abandon their youngest? Their son had taken lives. It's infuriating to think they were so desperate to protect him that they convinced themselves he could get away with it, claiming self-defense. And if that failed, they had the audacity to believe he could plead insanity. It's maddening. They were determined not to let their family suffer the consequences of his monstrous actions. They had fought hard for their so-called American dream, and now they were willing to ignore the reality of murder just to keep it intact. I've committed some really questionable acts that I have come to wholeheartedly regret. Some may ask why I even did such a thing. The answer will always be that I do not know myself. You can call it an insatiable urge. Lisa stood before her brother's cell, her heart pounding in her chest as she fought to steady her breath. Each inhalation came in shaky increments, a desperate attempt to keep her presence unnoticed in the cold, dimly lit hallway. She searched for some sort of implication to give truth to that letter. All that was in the cell were her brother's two very active cellmates. They slept serenely, coddled up like children against the wall of their respective bunks as she tightly gripped the cold metal bar of the cell. An electrifying tension filled the air, causing the inmates to stir in panic. It was as if a primal instinct had been awakened within them, leading them to believe they were suddenly thrust into a perilous struggle for survival. Much like the brutal realities one often faces in the dark corners of the slums, the brawny ginger had his eyes wide and red with irritation. He almost flew from his frame from the banging that Lisa's small palm had brought to life with a touch. The other, smaller, but still muscular, had softly turned himself over, almost unbothered by the verbal intrusion caused by the one female CO showing up at their block in the dead of night. There was only a lustful glare there. She sighed and glared at them, her stare demanding to see the last person in the shadows. She hoped from the bottom of her heart that her brother would creep up from behind the twin bunks. A silence made static pass through her ears, and her brother didn't emerge. Instead, that small inmate crept from his laid-down position and mirrored Lisa at the entrance to the cell. He breathed hard with a tangy output, showering Lisa's face with disgust. She scoffed as she pressed on her heels, steadily taking a step back. To Lisa, the inmate in front of her looked like a starved beast. She often saw the man in front of her teaching other inmates how to cope with their new life in prison. As an inmate himself, he should not have had the right to do so, but his compassion and leadership led people to look up to him. He was honestly the sweetest man that she could claim she met in prison. Even her brother had more spine than muscle. One day, Lisa decided to ask him why he was still in prison. He explained that same night that he received a life sentence after being caught. He admitted that when he was free, he kidnapped and tortured an uncomfortable amount of transient women. He said something along the lines of, "God has no respect for harlots." Maybe he was insane, but he claimed he was a respectful man of the Lord. In the state he stood in now, he was the pure antonym of the nice guy persona he usually shows. His eyes rested half-lidded and bloodshot. His gaze lingered on parts of her body with an unsettling desire. Although his hands gripped hard on the bars on either side of her face, he looked ready to topple over with a single misstep. He mumbled to say something, but she was only able to understand the slurring of an accused drunk. Realizing her presence made no difference to anyone in the vicinity. She sucked in as much as she could and ran off with that breath held within her chest. The letter elt as if it was coming true. I want to see the chaos from the front seat. Such a massacre has been my dream since becoming a person of power. I can do it, so why not? For 25 years, I have gotten away with enough wrongdoings to make the boy M killing tonight look like a saint. He's been a serial killer since childhood, but he's merciful in the sense he ends their suffering. However, Lisa rushed through the halls with her hands clasped around her keys. She glided past cell after cell with nothing standing out to her until she heard a muffled bang come from the prison's watchtower, cantered in the lunch area on the first floor. She crept up to the door and reached for the knob. A sharp pain ran through the muscles in her wrist. Her eyes closed for the moment of impact before she opened them to see her brother in nothing but his worn-out, once white, prison boxers. His eyes were wide and the same shaded red as the other inmate she had seen up close. His entire face was morphed into fear itself. Lisa had never seen him look like this. Richard fell on top of her, breathing as if he just escaped a nasty waterboarding session. Except he wasn't wet. He was covered in oil. She froze in place, a fathomable confusion filling her expression. The room grew more tense as Richard only stared for a moment and opened his mouth, inhaling and howling. He then pushed off Lisa's chest and sprinted away, never turning to look back. His destination seemed unclear. It just looked like he wanted to get as far away as possible. At first, she found the cowardice retreat understandable, because it made sense. The only time a prisoner would get to enter the watchtower was if they were in trouble and about to receive some sort of punishment. My morals have morphed over the years. I'm not an old man going senile. I have come to embrace the cruelty I wish to inhabit, although I still recognize that this is wrong. I want to watch the hell burn from its core. I understand that this is an unforgivable madness. The ending of the letter resurfaced in her brain as the warden walked out from the shadows of the tower. He smiled widely, towering over her in uniform pants and his uniform boots. He lifted his hand with his gun pointed to his head. She stared in horror as her brother's howling continued like a dog whistle. Before she could catch up with herself, the gun was fired and a bullet went straight through the warden's skull. So I write this letter to let you know that I will be taking my own life after have fun, and I take the boy's. His body fell limp, and the alarms finally took away her silence. She stared at the body, and the next 4 hours of her life passed in a blur. She was taken into emergency care and treated for substance abuse. just like everyone else in the prison. Even though she had accidentally saved her brother's life that night, it was already too many deaths, too late. The world had already been spoon-fed the confession of the wicked, so today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.